Let's take a look at what the riders are going to face today. This is Watopia Hilly Forward, and it's got a tough start. You've got to survive right at the beginning.
Right out of the gate. And you know, Zwift races, no matter what course, are really tough out of the gate.
Yep.
So this one, it hits that little kicker.
That's right.
and you're on it. And some people are going to be laying down those watts. And
the biggest climb is that first section. Now, they're going to go over that 3 different times. They're going to repeat that climb 3 times, and it's definitely the toughest and the longest spot. They'll do that climb, of course, 3 times, but they'll start it within a minute of the beginning of the race.
Right, there's no relaxing in that all up the top.
Not at all.
And the whole, you'll have an elevation change of about 57 meters, but up and down 302 meters. And 27 kilometers is the total race duration. And so who do we have on tap here?
Okay, so starting us off is Mathieu Drujon.
Yeah, he's a Team Vision Pro rider. He actually began riding at 12, and he's here from France.
Very cool. We have Ian Bibby as well.
Yeah, another one that started at a young age of 10. He's a cross and mountain bike racer and races for JLT.
Really strong. We've seen him in the past. Kevin Amber.
That's right, and he's a Team Innovation rider, and he's actually also a tennis teacher.
Yes, and Arbor is going to be a good one in this. Now, Antoine Goron as well from France.
Yeah, and he's a cross-country competitor, and he does cyclocross as well. We know that we're going to see some of that strength out there on the course, I'm sure.
Here in France, we also have Ryan Christiansen. No, it's Ryan Christiansen. That's just who he is.
He's been competing since he's about 15, and he competed in the Australian Nationals at 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now the brother duo right here, Quentin Lefay leading it off.
Yep, co-manager of the Vision Zwift team, and he's a veteran Zwift racer with 150 races. And then we've got his brother Leo
Lefay. That's right, a little bit younger, but he has got something to prove. Now, it'll be interesting to see how they match up today.
That's right.
After them, Tim Fulford.
That's right. He's from Northern England, and he represents Team Vision.
And the final rider in our group today is Andy Jackson.
The world champion, Ultra Marathon Cycling Association champion.
The 6-hour world title. This is the men's CVR preliminary heat, and the gate drops now, and here they go. We see those big red numbers as they get out of the saddle. We can see the big group here in the stadium right now spinning their legs fast, and we've got a big push at the front. This is not where you're going to win the race, Beth, but as you mentioned earlier, it could be where you lose it. What's the danger?
Yeah, you can't win in the first 30, but you can certainly lose it. If you lose track of this pack, if you let anyone get away, it can make a big difference down the road.
Boy, it can, and we see this group already stretched out. It's like a comet, and you don't want to be in the tail of the comet. You definitely want to be in the head of the comet.
You need to be looking to the right side and matching those watts.
Drujon on the front here, pushing as hard as he can. Bibby not far behind him. Christensen, Guimond, Lefay, all pushing hard there. Now they're coming around this. It flattens out just for a little bit. There's just a little bit of reprieve. They're all up to speed. They're looking around going, okay, how fast are we going to go? Do we want to go this hard the whole time? The danger comes from those that we see behind just a little bit, and we'll call some of those names momentarily. You see Drujon moves a little bit back. You've got Leo Lefay also 1 second behind the group at this point, the head of the comet, so to speak, but he pulls himself right up to this group and says, okay, now I can settle in. How hard are these folks going to go on the first climb? Is this where you try to win the race? And we should point out that there's no prize money today, right?
No. It's the top 4 racers, so the top 4 spots. So it's going to be interesting to see if anyone tries to break this group up a little bit and say, come with me. I'm going to test. I feel strong. I'm going to break this up, and I know I want to be one of those top 4. I don't want to be.
When are you going to? Yeah, when am I going to?
Yeah, when are you going to do it? Yeah.
Okay, they hit the climb hard, and the watts spike as you look over on the left side. You can see those red numbers bouncing up there. Christensen with his headphones on, looking serious. He's focused on his music and making sure that he stays in the zone right up there. And he is the guy who's going to sit on the front of this group. Now, you don't get a ton of aerodynamic advantage here. You can certainly get a psychological advantage by working harder than your opponent thinks you're going to work in this case. So here is the question. As they start to string out a little bit, is this the place that you want to try to push and test?
I think, the first part of that climb, you can really actually open it up a little bit. You're going to come over the top, and you're going to have to keep that pedal down. But if you're going to open it up, this is the place to do it. And when you're feeling strong at the beginning of the race, you can kind of test your competitors. They're going to come with me. I'm going to go. I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah, and they are, and they're pushing hard up this group. Christensen on the front here, doing a big bit of work. And I think some of the other guys are going, is this guy for real? Don't know him that well. He's certainly a strong, historically accurate rider. But you notice that he went out, and when he warmed up, he gathered for himself the polka dot jersey. That has got to be a psychological dig for the rest of these riders. The guy warms up, and he steals the mountain jersey.
And the way you earn these jerseys in the game is that you've just done the fastest time on a segment. So,
exactly.
So like he's kind of setting a little thing. I'm at the front. I've got the jersey. I'm coming across that banner.
Motivated by the top man. He comes up over the top. We see the banner. When he hits that banner, it's going to flatten out, and there's going to be another opportunity for them to come together to use that aerodynamics. But they are strung out big time. He's doing well over 500 watts, and if you don't know what that is like, then you have not been cycling. But actually, if you've done any kind of work in the past, it's
a sprint,
big time.
a 100-meter dash. All
absolutely.
Is about what that's going to feel like.
Now we see in the game all of these confetti stripes coming down the list there, and all these thumbs up. You know what that means? That means you've done something special, and it's reminding someone to watch you, who's watching you, that you have done something special, and you can give them that ride on. Which means this big group of 5 comes up over the top, and they've done an amazing job. We've got Arbor and Fulford, Bibby in that group. Also in that group, we've got Drujon hanging on to the back, and then we've got a gap. 7 seconds back to Quentin Lefebvre.
That's not a big gap. And it's early. We've got those three right behind. So that's not going to last.
The innovation rider as well in that group, and you can see the pain on their face. They know that this isn't the end of the race, but you certainly don't want to be sitting 8 seconds back. Now again, the top 4 advance. The fastest 2 additional times, regardless of heat, advance to that top 10. And so there's a lot of racing still to play out here. As we look at Jackson, who is pushing hard, chasing hard, you can see up at the corner there, his group is in the rear just a hair. He's doing the hard work to try to make sure that he stays, but he's going to have to get some help to make that happen. Now in that lead group, the Fulford and Arbor group, it's interesting to see Fulford on the front there doing a big turn. We've got some more gaps there as well, and out of his saddle, Fulford pushing as hard as he can. Those guys just barely behind him. You can see their names at the bottom of the screen showing their relative proximity in meters, and they want to close that down. They want to be close together and use this aerodynamic effect. What's coming next for them on the course here?
Well, they're going to be coming down around this hill, and then they're going to hit the flat for a little bit into the. Are they going to the S's here?
It would appear so. Looks like Arbor has dropped out just a hair here. Not sure what has happened, if it's a mechanical, maybe something broke on the bike, which is entirely possible. Just like a race outside, we have mechanicals, things can go wrong. There's imperfection in the perfection of this sport. We see the fans, just sitting there with them, watching their folks grind, cheering. The unique thing about this event this time is that you can walk directly up to these riders and you can cheer in their ear and tell them, work harder, man. You got to catch that group, or don't let those guys bully you. You show them what's up. We've got Leo Lefebvre just a little bit farther back on that group.
You got to keep that pedal down that hill. You got to keep it down because that can open up pretty quickly.
Yes, you do. Bibby now on the front of this group. Fulford, they're just trading back and forth. These guys are working really hard. You can tell by the heart rates often how hard people are working. Now typically, as people age, their maximum heart rate drops. Now you can get your maximum heart rate to move a little bit, but typically older riders in their 40s have about 15 to 20 beats per minute slower as a maximum heart rate as someone who may be 18, 19, or 20. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're doing 180 and your opponent who's 20 years younger is doing
200,
200 that you're working at the same level. It's not that exact, but we can get a sense of where these riders are, which is a good thing. Now, as we look at Drujon there, as he sits on the back of this line, he's got a great view in the stadium here of the work being done by the other riders. They've just come over the big bridge, and they are looking again. Jackson sitting on the front of that group doing the hard work. The gap has grown significantly to about a minute, but it looks like, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yep.
And it looks like they're doing some good work up there. It looks like 6 riders in that group. We'll get those details for you momentarily.
And those 6 riders, I mean, they're going to be battling it out because we're talking 4.
Yeah, and when if you tune in and you're looking at the screen, which you can do, by the way, at the
Cycle View.
Yeah, the Cycle View app, you can pick any rider that you want to watch. You can see things from their perspective. Now, there are points on this course, Beth, as you know, that you've got great visibility and it feels like they're really close. And then other times when you lose sight of them and you're not sure how hard they're working or what they're doing. What makes that different is here in the stadium, if you've got great view, if you're like a Drujon and you can see down the line, you know when people are out of the saddle and working hard and they can't see you. That's why this random draw position for him might be a fabulous one. And you'll notice
he looks pretty relaxed.
He looks pretty relaxed. He's got
working.
That
He's got like a
brow.
pain. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, Mathieu is doing a really nice job, but he's also very cleverly sitting on the back of this group, which is very strategic if you're doing it on purpose, or also very telling if you don't have the ability to do it yourself. This will be interesting. We've got Hunter Allen with us today, and in a little bit we're gonna
we sure will get his thoughts on it from the coaching perspective.
See what's going on.
Physiologically, these guys are facing. They're at their threshold. They're out of the gate as hard as they can. They're working up that hill. How much do they save? Between the 2 days, right? They've got this race today that they're vying for the top 4 and maybe the 2 slots there for the fastest finish. But at the end of the day, they have to race again tomorrow.
Right.
So a lot of this too is an ability to test your opponents. What are they doing? If you give a little dig, are they going to match you?
Right.
Can we break up this 6? And none of these people haven't raced together before, so they're getting to know each other.
They are. And a 17-mile race, I would argue, is harder than a 70-mile race because you don't have the necessity to manage your fuel like you would in a longer race. And we can check in with the 6-hour world champion, right?
I have a lot of questions for Jackson. I sure do.
Yeah. No, what's interesting here is to see what Leo has done. Now, there was an issue earlier, and he found himself in a spot that he didn't want to be in, and now he is fighting his way back to the top of this group. Now, we've got this core group, and I think it's important to report on our core group. Fulford made that group as well. And so in this group, we've got Fulford and Bibby and Garand. And we've also got Drujon in that group. Now, I asked those 2 in advance that if they were going to race hard, that they didn't race together, because saying Garand and Drujon for me is incredibly difficult.
You're doing a great job.
But
Antoine, the 17-year-old, Tim Fulford, another Team Vision rider. I mean, these are experienced cyclists. I mean,
right.
It is fun to watch what they're doing.
And they've come up through the junior ranks and have done a nice job kind of preparing themselves for this. But they, while they've got lots of racing experience, they may not have the savvy that someone like Drujon does, who can see this whole field. I'll be very interested to see what happens for him. Fulford doing a very nice job. He has been active in this group from the beginning. It does not look like they are working together in a very, very agreeable fashion. They are trying to push hard, and they're broken up. It's not like just someone on the front. They keep exchanging who's on that front. Now, here's the question. Will Ian Bibby do too much work too early? We've seen him on the front a number of times. Christensen also in that second position. But you see someone like Drujon at the back hanging on and not doing a lot of work.
And that's, again, is it a strategy thing, or is it where you are in your power and what you can put out? The S's here, as we come through here, little rollers that we can come through, and sometimes too you can find a little separation here on those little rises here.
Yes.
And not enough, I think, to get breakaway, but I've seen attacks here.
Yes.
So.
And Garand right there doing a nice job in the field here, making sure that he's there. This is a 6-rider collection, and we'll just run it down. Drujon now drifting to the front. We've got Bibby. We've also got Garand, who I just mentioned, Fulford in this group. They are the group that certainly the top 4 is going to be selected from. What I find really exciting about this is that not all of them can make it.
No, and I think it's going to come down to who wants it more. We're coming around to completing our first lap. So we've got 2 more to go. So these guys are having to ask themselves, okay, can I keep this up for 2 more? Right? Is this the pace? Is it going to soften a little bit? And with 6 there, I think we're going to see some fighting. I don't think it's going to soften, because who wants it more?
Yeah, it's so true.
It's early in the race.
The next rider in the gap, not in this big collection, the next rider in the gap has got to be making some very serious decisions, right? And that is, how much can I put out here? If you're at the back of this group, if you've had some issues or a mechanical or something like that, you definitely are racing a different kind of race. It's for show, it's for the fans, it's for the people who supported you. It's very difficult to come back. Although anything could happen. Someone could break a pedal, someone could push a little bit too hard, lose their balance on the trainer and fall over, just like a crash in a real race. You could have all sorts of issues. But this group now kind of holding together there, Bibby sitting tight in that
kind of
group.
Settled into a little bit of a pace here, it seems like we've softened a little bit here.
Yep.
So.
But Arbor is that first man in the gap right now trying to make sense of where he is and what he can do.
Right.
He'd love to be in this group, but he knows that but they're just a little bit too far ahead. Now, they're not that far ahead. Now, we've talked about this before. There's an opportunity to create a speed differential for him on this next climb. He definitely
needs to do it there
group.
because right now they've got the 6 in the front. They're benefiting from the draft. So their relative speed as a group is moving faster than this rider as a solo rider.
Yep.
So if he has an opportunity to do it, he's got to do it on that climb.
Right.
Because that's where the draft effect softens a little bit. So so this is his opportunity. So I'd like to see what he does there. What he's got? What does he have?
No kidding. And as we glance around and we see what these guys are up to, all of their trainers calibrated in advance. We see over the shoulder, this is what the rider sees. They've got a screen in front of them. They've got a fan in front of them. Thank goodness. And we've got the camera, which tells us, what kind of pain face they are currently making. Now, when you're riding in this section, there we go, Quentin Lefay, well known in this field and well respected by these folks. He is doing a good piece of work there. He is putting his spandex to the test today to see if it'll hold all of his sweat and contain those massive muscles that he has. I'm sure he'll report later about the way he was described. Now, Quentin, as he's pushing here, he is trying to catch the next guy in the group. It's a very cyclocross kind of mentality, is that you've got a target in front of you and you've got a predator behind you.
That's right.
Catch the prey,
and look at this move. Look at this move.
Ooh, big move.
Yeah,
Bibby
a lot of
gives
red
it
numbers.
a test.
He's like, I am going.
Yep, Christensen in tow there. Drujon says, I am also going to make this move. This is a big push.
They got those feathers. They're using their power-ups there.
That's right. They are dropping their power-ups. One of the things considered in this race was, can we use these power-ups? A little on those power-ups in the moment when the fireworks slow down a little bit. But we've got two big bursts at the front here. Christensen and Bibby.
Look at that effort.
This is a surprise attack in so many ways.
Yes.
Now, you see Christensen working hard here. He's going to go with him no matter what happens. Also, there's probably a little discontinuity here watching. He's wearing a different jersey than he is in game. You've got to put that behind you right now. He earned that jersey. Now he moves around to the outside. Those little thumbs that are appearing over their heads if you don't know the game. Ooh, and he drops a feather. Now this will dramatically reduce his weight for a very brief amount of time. More on that in just a second. This gives him a distinct advantage in the climb.
Bibby is holding. No, he's like not. He's matching. He's like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
That's right. He's going to hold his wheel, and you hear the crowd cheering right now. They know how dramatic this is. This is still just two men trying to get away. And this is not the end of the race, but this is a very substantial move as they flatten out and come up and over the top. So, Beth, these two have done a big piece of work right here.
They opened up the gap. 19 seconds here. If they can hold that pedal down on the downhill, they can probably hold that gap. We've got Fulford and Garan, 22, 23 seconds together. Those guys are going to come up over the top and going to see what they can do to close it. But these guys are like slingshot because they're still working on the hill and the other guys are going down. So that gap is going to likely open up a little bit.
It is going to open up. So help us understand a little bit. They both dropped what are called power-ups, which are these in-game brief opportunities for slight advantage. One dropped the arrow helmet, the other dropped the feather. What are those about?
Well, the feather on a hill is the best one to use because it lightens you so that you actually can have a speed advantage. So it drops your weight a little bit, and so those watts that you're putting out, your watts per kilogram, relative to the other riders or what you just had, hasn't been increased. So you get a little bit of a boost there, and that's the place to do it. So that was a strategic move right there. You can save them, but that's the place to do it. If you're going to make an attack, drop that and go.
And the sweat is real here, ladies and gentlemen. As you see over the shoulder, all the fans tuning in, and competitors. We just saw
And look
Kim
at that
Little.
watt, still 6.9, 7.5. They are like holding it down.
Yes, they are. Beautiful shot of the velodrome that we're in here. People in the stands, people on the bikes, people circling the velodrome. But we see our two leaders here, Bibby and Christensen, fighting, and it looks to be 40 seconds to the trail group here.
They've opened it up, and behind 42 seconds there, they're doing a little less work back there, so they're going to have to do a little bit more if they want to close that gap.
Now we are only 12 kilometers into a 27-kilometer
so we're not even
race.
halfway.
No.
Anything can still happen. And
it's so true.
And we're talking about the top 4 spots too.
Yep.
So that same thing that applies is this is not for the prize purse. This is for position for tomorrow's race.
Ooh, and there's some fireworks in the back group there. It doesn't appear that they are working together. Those are high power numbers.
Yes.
As Fulford and Innovation there try to get up in the group, that is really powerful to see. Tim Fulford in that group pushing as hard as he can. We definitely want to see if this group can put something together. But the way they've got to do this is not to attack each other.
Right, they have to work together here. They have to work the draft together. They have to agree to go. And they're not next to each other to talk to each other, but you can give little signals when you're riding.
Yep.
It
is. It's true. And they've got to know that together they are strong, apart they are not. Now, there are 3 chase riders in this group right now. 2 of them are going to automatically advance, and then potentially, they've grouped up here.
Yep.
Very, very nice. Fulford still hanging on to that group. Arbor just about a minute behind. But we've got Bibby, of course. We've got Jackson in that group, and Garan and Drujon still hanging on for those spots. You'll notice that 2 riders out there on the outside, they left just a little bit of a door open. They lost that draft. They drifted out, just some of the mechanics of the game. But as we jump back into Christensen and Bibby on the front here, we see that they are still putting down hard watts. 4.8 watts per kilo plus on the front by Bibby, a little bit less on the back by Christensen, just hanging on to see how much they can do. Now, as they cross the bridge here, this gap is an important one because they've all kind of evened out here. The gap appears to be 49 seconds. And what's interesting to find out is whether they can hold these things. In just a moment, we want to get some Hunter Allen insight here.
Yes, absolutely. Because this is an important time. You're 20 minutes in. You've been working so hard, at threshold or above threshold. I'm curious what the physiological things are happening in the body and what matches you have left to burn.
Absolutely. And Hunter Allen, a world-class cycling coach on site here, whispering in the ear of Arbor right now, probably saying, "You're doing great, man, but let's work a little harder." Now you hear the bell behind me. That is not the bell lap for this race. That is the bell lap for the velodrome. We've got racing happening on multiple levels at this point. This little riser here, Christensen and Bibby coming up, they've got to do a little bit more. We see Arbor in the back of this group doing everything he can to chase on. But this gap is not very big to Fulford and the rest of the group. But we've got Jackson now making a bigger move, and he is trying to push and whip this group. Now, the interesting thing about this environment is that we have a clear sense of how much power these riders are putting out. The key being those watts per kilo. Your watts, your overall weight your overall watts divided by your kilos, right? So we know exactly how much relative power you are putting out. So they are looking at someone like a Christensen and a Bibby holding just under 5 watts per kilo, which, by the way, on the scale of to amazing is frickin' unbelievable, just so we're clear. It breaks the scale. And these guys are trying to chase back. Jackson now easing up just a little bit on the front of this chase group, saying, I can't do this without you boys. I need someone to pull to the front. And hopefully Hunter is whispering in their ear, saying something to the effect of, look, somebody in this group has got to sit on the front at all times and hold a higher wattage than they are doing. Now, Beth, back on the desk with me here, may be able to point out, some of the differences about where you try to put down this hard power and when you don't try to put down this hard power. We see the collection of 4 trying to chase down Bibby and Christensen. That gap has grown to a minute, but Bibby and Christensen about to hit that hill as they come close. They're probably up ahead near the bridge. We'll see them in just a minute.
And as they come across the line there, you know, that first hill comes pretty quick. So if they can kind of keep it down here, get the pedal down here, and really add the power now while these guys are starting to lose a little speed, right? They're going to still work that climb. And this is the last lap.
It is. It's the final lap.
This is a move. You gotta. This is where you need to make it and try to make up some of that time.
And I find interesting here, and I'm not sure at what point that it will occur, but this four, which has been working together as a chase group, is going to cease to be friends very soon.
Yeah. The coalition is going to implode at some point.
It is.
Because you know there's two of them aren't going to make the cut, or it depends. I mean, maybe the race time. But okay, now these guys on the hill, what are they doing? They're saying, okay, well we're gonna. I don't see those red numbers this time. They're not.
They're
not
being a little bit smarter. Well, Bibby is definitely in the 6 and 7 watt. Both of them are up there. They'll peak at about 8. When we see those red numbers, they're going to more than 8 watts per kilo. But at some point, these 4 riders in the back are just like 4 girlfriends going to a dance. If there are 2 cute boys, it doesn't matter how much you love them, your friends are getting dumped at some point. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, there's only one person that gets that invite to the prom, right?
That is absolutely right. And these boys want to make sure that they are invited to that very prom tomorrow. This is a preliminary race, and they're going to look for any opportunity to beat these folks. I think this is the big race that we're going to want to watch, and I hopefully will hold here for just a moment. We have in this group 4 strong riders. Jackson, right? And he has been the guy on the front. Antoine right here, Garon, and Drujon also in this group. We've got the young and the experienced. I didn't say old going here. Now he looks like he is really digging hard here. He's not waiting to see what other people are doing. He is pushing the power in and setting the pace.
Yeah, he's got that power up, using that and saying, I'm going, guys. Right. I'm going, guys. You know, come with me or not, but I am not going to be 5. I'm not going to be 6.
That's right. Bibby and Christensen still battling it out together. They're side by side, but at this point they are working together. They maybe would like to be able to say, I won this heat, but they know with 4 guys chasing, who are on the same hill that they are, by the way, that only 45 seconds back, that they have to work together unless they get caught. It is entirely possible still, and you'll have to stay tuned to watch, that these 2 riders could get caught by the 4 chasers, and
they can't relax. They can't let up. It's not a done deal. You know?
And they could not make the finals, even though they're leading the race right now.
Right.
So much remains to be determined here in this race. So Fulford and Jackson, Drujon and Garon all chasing this group, but they have broken up just a little bit. He drops that power up, and which is that feather, as you so aptly mentioned, lowers your weight for about 20 seconds, and that is a big thing to do. You'll notice that some of these other guys have not dropped their power-ups, which means they may still be holding them, and that's the strategic thing that you would look for. Why would you want to hold on to, say, an arrow power up or a draft power up?
Well, if it comes down to that sprint and you are it's tight, you want every bit of advantage. You know, you want the lead out and you want the power up.
Yes, you do. Jackson off the back of this group now. That is a big happening here in the race. He is trying to hang on as much as he can, but those guys have gapped him. And when you see 3 guys together and you know you've got to close that gap, no less on a climb, that is some scary business. This is his now or never moment for Jackson. And can he pull himself back to the group?
Yeah, the other guys are he's saying nope.
Okay.
No, guys, you're not getting away.
That's right.
I want it as bad as you. And in fact, I'm coming right to the front to tell you I've still got legs.
He's still got legs.
You know, that might have been a little surprise to him. You know, sometimes when you're climbing too and you're focused, maybe you close your eyes for a second. You know, other riders can just add that little bit of power and they can get a little bit away. You don't want 1 second or 2 seconds because that stretches pretty fast. So you've got to be ready to respond.
But the danger here, and Beth, you'll know this too, is that you can overexert too early. That's often used as the euphemism burning a match. You only have so many matches in the book, and when they're burnt up, you can't use them all. But when you use your power is a really important piece. Arbor still chasing in the gap there. The Lefebvre brothers behind also doing a big bit of chase. There's still a race to happen here. They haven't determined who those top spots are, but we know that Bibby and Christensen now with a more than a minute gap on those others.
They've really stretched that out a little bit.
They haven't let up.
No, they have not. And I think they're like, we are 1 and 2. We're not going to let you 3 or 4 and come behind me and have me lose my position. I'm going to hold it.
Absolutely. They are in the zone here right now doing a really big bit of work. Now, as we come to this last section, those guys are starting to descend, right? They're going to descend the big hill here. This is the last bump before they do, and then Christensen and Bibby are going to drop down. They are most likely at this point, unless something goes wrong, going to be able to hold that minute 40-second gap. They're going to get a lot more speed. It's going to grow briefly here. It might even peak over 2 minutes. Now the other four are looking around as we see Lefay climbing here. He's still putting in a big push here. Quentin does not want to be left behind. He'd actually like to catch Arbor, who's just up ahead of him. And it's something that he could conceivably do. But as we look at these four, they're getting ready for their big descent. You've got on the back of this group Drujon, and we've got Garon on there, and Fulford and Jackson. Now, the younger riders may be leading the front, although Garon is also young. But you've got French versus UK here in this big mix here. And you can see the flags on the right side.
That's right. And with CVR World Cup, that's always a thing, right? There's always the country pride there,
Absolutely.
The origin. And it's fun to watch. It is going to be every man for themselves, though. It's going to be you are my comrade, you are my you are my bud. And I just wonder who's holding their power-ups here too, because they might come down to a sprint with this group, and that would be pretty exciting.
I'm going to point out here that I believe I saw Garon use his power-up, which was that feather.
Yep.
Now, it's entirely possible for them to get a new power-up at the top of the climb. But if you're holding the card that you want, you're holding that arrow, which I think that we're going to see here, it adds a tremendous strategic advantage. You don't want to give that away if you've got the one that sets you up for the thing that you want to do. So that arrow power-up will increase your aerodynamic advantage dramatically for about 30 seconds. And that is a big deal in a sprint. It gives you a much higher top speed, potentially, with maximum power output. The other one is the drafting one. It looks like a bread truck, and if you've ever ridden behind a bread truck, you know. And what does that one give you, Beth?
That gives you the drafting effects, like hiding behind a van. The duration on that was similar.
It's very similar.
Yep.
The shortest one is definitely the climbing power-up, the feather, light as a feather. It may be closer to 15 or 20 seconds. We'll check on those details before we go much further. They've played with those numbers over time, but those are the three primary power-ups. And that's one of the things that blends this perfectly between a video game and an actual physical cycling event.
You have a little bit of a tool, right? You have a little bit of a tool in where you use it. Now they're coming in to the S's are going to hit the cobbles pretty soon here.
Yep, Sprint Town, going by the waterfall. Love Sprint Town in here. I'd love to be able to someday to just take my avatar and sit in one of those cafes and sip a hot cocoa or something like that. But as they come through Sprint Town, getting ready for what is traditionally one of the sprint sections where you can win that green jersey, they are just pushing straight power through. You'll notice that they drift to the front there. They're taking turns. I don't know if they're agreeing on some kind of rhythm or they're just going by feel, probably a little of both. But we see that gap at now 150 is probably not going to shrink dramatically unless something goes wrong. So our fear of these two riders being caught, maybe because we're saying it out loud, it's on the PA system here.
Yeah, that's right.
resonated into their head and they said, okay, that's not happening.
That's right.
And have pushed ahead. Now, the four riders that chase here.
This is going to be the exciting part right here, because this is what's really going to make the cutoff. You could say that top six, like you have the four that are automatically going to advance to the elite bracket, but those two, is this going to be the fastest heat? We have another men's heat. It might not be. So they have to, it theoretically could just be two of that four. So it's really going to come down to strategic when they hit the sprint.
Yeah, I think that there's a real advantage to this group, and I think that maybe they shouldn't feel comfortable, but they should feel hopeful that those two wild card spots, not one of the four automatic qualifiers from this race, but potentially those two wild card spots, is that they have maintained a really high pace throughout.
Right, there has not been any softening of the pace, and it's maybe settled in, but not settled in the way that we've seen racing before.
No.
It is amped.
Yes.
It may have been more consistent in pacing with these little attacks, but it is an amped pace.
Now, I'll be really interested for after the race concludes here in just a moment. They're coming up over the big kicker, getting ready, the leaders, to jump into those Essies. We see the four rounding the corner, about to come into Sprint Town. Now that you see coming up to the big finish here. These are some of our chasers at this point.
Yep.
It is getting really, really exciting
maybe here
at
with a
the
little
end.
bit of a push here up in the front.
Jackson really wanting to make that happen. I think that what we're going to do is we're going to hold tight here. We are coming up to the end of the sprint, going across the Julian Washington Bridge, the JW Bridge. Boy, the bell dings here in the room, and it seems completely appropriate.
It sure does.
Because it feels like a final lap in many ways.
Yeah.
Lots of ride-ons, which is the way that other riders can give, courage and appreciation to what they're seeing on course. That big blue thumb that drops over your head and then into your pockets. I've always wondered if a lot of those ride-ons weighs you down, although I've never been so encumbered.
There is an achievement in the game that gives you a number of ride-ons if you have a certain per ride, which is kind of nice. It actually makes a difference when you feel like
I've never been able to unlock that one myself. Maybe just not
I've
nearly
heard of it.
popular
It's
enough.
mythical to me.
It's mythical. Okay, so our big riders coming up here. I think it's certainly a point of interest, and I'm excited after this piece concludes that you're going to be able to go down there and maybe get one of them just to kind of explain how they felt. Bibby and Christensen, big finish here. People out of the saddle here. Something is going to happen. I'm excited about that. And as we get excited, we see big red numbers.
Yes, we
attacks coming from behind. Garon, the young rider, pushing away. Now, they're only just a few meters behind them. Drujon just a little bit further back there. They are sticking together here, but this is where it is happening at this point.
Just over 2 kilometers
to go. Yes, Mathieu Drujon sees those boys move away, but he cannot let up because he could still be one of those qualifying spots. He's learned so much in this race that he could actually apply to the race that's coming up tomorrow, this being the prelim, the qualifier for that big final race. No money on the line, just bragging rights at this point. Big finish coming. It looks like those 4 riders are together. Mathieu is definitely going to want to push to the front here, and he is.
Yes, there he goes.
Yes. You'll notice he had to burn his power up to be able to get back. He doesn't have the same ammunition as these other riders, so he's going to have to find the right wheel and let them carry him to the line.
All right, here comes the finish.
Big finish coming up here. Christensen and Bibby, there's some separation here.
They're sprinting it down to the end, though, and they don't even have to. That is
no kidding. Bragging rights. They want to be able to say, I won that qualifier. Maybe get some more. Big coming around him. So exciting coming up to the big finish here, and he does. He comes around him.
Yep. Oh, shut it down.
There we go.
Wow,
Bibby, Christensen, 1, 2.
Yes.
But the race is not over, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not.
We've got a big finish coming here at the end, and we'll call it for you right now. Okay. So 4 riders left. They managed to pull themselves together. Jackson also on the front here. Fulton, and Drujon also hanging in this group. We're going to stay focused on one rider at this point when we find them. And yes, we've got him, Fulford, right there. Big push on the front, but he's not actually on the front. It's Jackson. Did Jackson go too early? Maybe so. But as we come down to the final 300 meters, we'll tell you exactly how it's going to happen. Drujon just a little bit further behind. He is doing good work. I can see him in my periphery right now, but he is the last man in that line, and perfect. We've got the note of the bell in the room here, and it's going to push their heart rate up a little bit more. It's pretty high. We'll see when they drop these, if they've got them. Drujon definitely spent his just a moment ago. So Fulford definitely wants to hang on. They are in full sprint mode now, ladies and gentlemen. And the big gap, he drops the van. This isn't even the right one to use. He can't go any harder. He can't get any advantage, and it looks like he's going to get past. He's only got 100 meters coming around to the end there, and we definitely can see Jackson. Big push around the outside. Comes underneath. Drujon, the savvy veteran, comes around at the end, and the mob surrounds them and says, congratulations, boys, you've done it. You can see the look on Drujon's face. He knows how hard he worked. These men have put together some fabulous laps and come together for an amazing big finish.
That was incredible.
No kidding.
Effort.
Now, Kim Little's avatar, who has been our watcher today, sits patiently and comfortably in the pen saying, I'm glad that wasn't me. But we're going to see him on the course even later today. That is our top 6. Now, we'll get official note from the officials in just a moment who are going to score that properly. But what I think we saw there was a savvy veteran, Mathieu Drujon, waiting and biding his time, covering the distance when he needed to, and putting down the power he knew he had at the end. I think some of those younger boys may have spent a little too much too early. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the results show, and it's one of those things where it's really interesting to see those real world tactics being applied in game.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's so exciting, because, you sometimes people wonder, like, how do you translate the road to the game? And those are tactics that the experienced people are going to know themselves. They're going to know what they can do. They can know those last things that they do, and then add the power up in the van,
Exactly.
So that was so exciting. It was so exciting. And 5 and 6, we don't know if those will be the two.
We really don't know if those will be the two.
Another heat later on.
Mathieu Jujon guaranteed a spot in this group. There's a little bit more question about that 4th spot. We'll find out from the officials in just a moment. You may already be at home trying to find those details out, but we'll have those for you in a minute. But Bibby and Christensen, without a doubt, big push and made it all the way
they did.
To the
they
top.
did not let up, and they even crushed it at the end.
Yes.
They didn't have to do that. That was like, no, come on, we're going. And that might be a little test for tomorrow.
It might be.
Because, what do you have at the end of that effort? And it didn't matter first or second today.
It didn't. But it did to
them.
them.
Yeah, it did. It did to
right.
test your competitor. Like, if I'm in that position tomorrow, what does he have left? What does he have left?
Exactly. We have still just a few people on course. We'll give you those final details in a minute, but we'll give you that top 4 or top 1 through 6 momentarily. I know that you want to get down there.
Yeah, I want to get down and see if I can talk to one of our riders.
So as we look at what Léa Lefay sees there on course, he is still pushing hard. Again, the kid brother of Quentin, mechanical early in the race, continued to fight through all the way to the end, which is heroic, fabulously heroic. He's got to feel great in this space today and deserves our applause, and he's been getting lots of love from the folks around him. That's something that can happen in this kind of racing, but it's something that we never expect or look forward to. Now, just by way of a recap, this race, we saw on the first climb a big push by 2 riders. Maybe it wasn't taken seriously, or maybe those that really had the legs decided they would wait to see how it would work out. The benefit of this prelim, as you know, is that you don't have to win it. You don't have to have the final time or the fastest time, as long as you come in 1 through 4. So if you're a strong rider and you're in that lead group, there's a perfectly reasonable expectation or belief that you could in fact finish on that podium, or that podium of 4. And being part of that chase group of 4, you're really cooking. There's a good reason to believe that you could actually be at the top of that group, doing everything that you need to make it to that final. You're moving so quickly, there's probably a good chance that you've got it. Now, if it stays together, further, we'll see. Okay, so we've got Beth available. She's down here with Ian Bibby right now, the unofficial winner of this race. And what'll be fun to find out is how he looked at his relationship with Christensen and their work together throughout this race. They're not physically near one another in the race, but they certainly were virtually. And they managed to work together very, very well. So we'll throw down to Beth right now, who's talking with Ian Bibby live on the course.
Yeah, so wow, what an effort out there. How did you feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It was. I enjoyed it. We went off the front with a lap to go, quite a long way out, so it wasn't too. I've not done a sprint on here, so it was hard to know how the sprint would be. So yeah, it was good. Worked out well.
Well, the two of you there at the front knew you didn't have to beat each other. You were securing your position for tomorrow's race. And so that sprint at the end, was that just sort of kind of figuring out what the sprint feels like?
Yeah, it's different sprinting on a turbo because the bike doesn't move. So we said we'd just sprint it out, and yeah, we'd qualified. So it's good practice for tomorrow. So there'll probably be another one.
And I saw some tactics early on. Are you willing to share sort of what was going through your mind when you guys were a mass and before it was broken up?
Yeah, it's split quite early on to like a group of 6, so we wanted to really get rid of a few before the finish, so it's not as much of a gamble. And Christian was really strong, so I pushed on the climb and we got away, and then we both worked together then. So
Well, that was a really, really fun effort to watch. And this is one of your first experiences on Swift.
Yeah, I've done a few of the weeknight ones, the KISS ones. So I did a few of them in preparation just to figure it out and see all the tactics and stuff.
And translating sort of what you do on the road, because you're like massively strong outside of the game, as we know. What are the similarities and differences that you might have noticed?
It's surprisingly the same, to be honest. The drafting the same, and the only difference is the power-ups really is sort of deciding when to use them and not getting caught out when you attack and somebody's got a power-up and hangs on. So, but as far as riding, it's really they've done it really well. It's very similar to on the road.
Well, your prep work, not just in your training, but your prep work in your KISS races, and was evidenced here. Wonderful job! Congratulations on a great finish, and we look forward to watching you race tomorrow.
We saw some incredible fireworks on the first climb, just like we predicted.
Yep.
Bibby and Christensen get away. Garon, Drujon, and Fulford and Jackson become this de facto chase group.
And that sprint was exciting.
It was.
Oh,
it was.
That was exciting to see that. That they had some left. They saved it.
They did save it. And there's always the added, kind of mystery and wild card of these power-ups that no one else can see. They know what they've got.
Right.
But we may not.
That's right.
Very cool. So thank you for joining us here at the National Velodrome for CVR World Cup Paris. And we've got more exciting racing to come. So if you're watching us live now, know that you've got to just stay tuned because really cool things are going to happen.